Hello, everybody. Welcome to new and exciting episodes of Hacking Learning to Hack with me, Helen. My name is Helen Oakley, and I'm going to provide you the introduction for today's sessions. And further on, what we are talking about and what are we really learning in these sessions. So stay with me and let's take a look. Before we go into some details, I would like to ask you a question. How do you defend your organization? What do you do? And maybe when you hear this question, you will think, well, maybe I will go with some solutions, I will apply some configurations, I will use some tools. But if I ask you, how would you hack your organization? Now, what are you thinking? Maybe I know that I could misuse something. I know that credentials are not very strong in one of the systems. I know that my other colleague likes cats and I can send a phishing email about cats that she may actually go and I could steal the credentials. What's happening now? Now you are enumerating possibilities, how your organizations could be hacked. So what am I doing here? I am getting you into a hacker mindset. So anyone can be a hacker and they can attack you from any possible angles that you probably don't expect. Because if you do expect it, you're more likely to implement those defenses. So let's take a look. What is a hacker mindset? A hacker mindset is when you trying to think like an attacker, but in an ethical way. So in order to prevent. And good example, I give with kids when I educate kids in hacking. When I try to explain, is hacking bad? No, hacking is not bad, but it can do things that are bad. So this is why we want to make sure we are being ethical in our hacking and do only what's allowed, because otherwise it will be considered as criminal activities. And why we do this? Well, it's simple, because without understanding the defense, you cannot understand the offense. I like this saying because it really well explains why we're learning to hack, why we have penetration testing and ethical hacking. So let's talk a little bit about hacking. Again, what is it? What is hacking? Hacking is actually, there's nothing bad with hacking itself. It's just doing something that is not intended to be done, or making something or someone to do what is not intended. Usually hackers, they have two main traits. They thrive in failure. That's interesting, right? They thrive in failure. And another trait that they have is curiosity. So everyone who's joining me today, I'm pretty sure you are curious. What is hacking and how you can learn about that. So in failure, why are we thriving in failure? Because hackers are really good at it. In order to understand, in order to break something, you will go through many roadblocks, and it actually energizes us and it pushes our boundaries, to find the ways how we can break a system, how we can get in, how can we do something, right? And curiosity is driving us. And often hackers, they're not motivated by malice, but they're motivated by curiosity. Understanding the limits of the technology that you're trying to hack, understanding those boundaries of possibility, of possible, and make something to do what it's not intended to do. Of course, this is what hacking. And this is what we are learning in these episodes. And with future guests, with or without, we will go through different tips and techniques about hacking, and you will learn about them. You can do hands-on, and then you can apply your knowledge, of course, in your organization. I would like to also bring up a slight difference. Both terms, ethical hacking and penetration testing, are often used interchangeably, but there is a slight difference between them. While ethical hacking is a general process of using hacker techniques for a good purpose, which includes vulnerability discovery in a target organization's network, software product vulnerability research, and other similar activity. So you see, as it's more a generic term of trying the limits of the software with the good purpose. But pen test in a similar manner, but it's more focused, it's more narrowly focused, and it examines specific weaknesses in IT infrastructure of a corporation to trying to discover and exploit those weaknesses in a safe manner. And usually it's more established through the contracts and agreements or programs that penetration testers are doing. In order to understand where we even can start with penetration test techniques, I would like to show you my famous slide of attack kill chain. So from the start till the end, we have many steps until attacker from when attacker actually sets the goal. And goals can be different: financial, political, espionage, malicious insider, you name it, again, different goals, until the end when they succeed in their attack and they cover the steps and they obtain what they wanted to obtain. And throughout, always it starts with reconnaissance. So attackers need to learn about system, about people, and just collect as much information as possible in order to attack. And this stage usually takes the most of the time for attackers. The more information they have about the target system, the more successful they're going to be. And it's not only system, it's also people, hence goes social engineering. And then it goes into weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control. That's when we get our access, and of course, actions on objective, right? So the desired outcome of the attack. From the attacker's perspective, of course, not for us. So this is why we want to learn and we want to test all these stages with different tools and with different techniques to understand where do we have gaps? Where are we not secure enough? How can we implement the defensive mechanisms to make sure that we have security in depth, so defense in depth that we can prevent. So it's not just one single solution that will make your system secure. It's multiple, including people, of course. So like security awareness and etc. Is usually the weakest chain, they call, even today, still the weakest chain in our attack chain. Each stage has its own tools and its own techniques. And we'll go through different ones, like I said, and we will learn different techniques, whether you are interested in application security or you're interested in the network security and penetration testing on that, or maybe around reconnaissance, how we find information on online and how we misuse that information as well, or potentially could misuse, right? And also other areas like malware and sandboxing and etc. Access gaining. So all these different techniques, I would say not a single person can do them all perfectly and knows everything. So when we're talking about the complexity of system, we have multiple experts in different areas to really deep dive into these areas to learn and work together in a team effort to prevent and protect our systems. This is why I'm a host of this event, and I will be inviting guests. We will be announcing our guests very soon, so stay tuned to go through all kind of different techniques. This is exciting. Now, a little bit more about different penetration testing types. So, like I mentioned, there are many chains in an attack kill chain, many components that we learn. And in general, you may hear different references to different types of testing. And let's take networking testing is one of the most popular, I would say, and the first level testing that corporations usually get or usually hire pen testers to do. So this in this type of test, it involves finding security weaknesses and vulnerabilities in network infrastructure of the target corporation. This test can be done locally at the place of the business, or it can be done remotely. And recommendation is to do both at some extent, just to make sure that we cover the whole surface. And it involves things like firewall configuration testings, stateful analysis, firewall bypass testing, IPS invasion, DNS attacks, you name it. Many different areas are involved in the network testing itself. The next one is application web testing. This is where I'm more specializing as a security architect of web applications. And definitely there are a lot of techniques that you can do work with web applications. And this can be specifically viewed as deeper dive of the test, as much of, to go through in more thorough detail of the architecture of the application, the code of application, and we find a web-based application weaknesses, for example, ActiveX, Java applets, API testing, and etc. So all these different components, depending on architecture, are examined. In this type of test, is considered to be more complex. As a result, a large amount of time can be also involved with this type of testing. The client side is another one that you may hear. Is when we test more of applications and like of workstations. Let's say a laptop is given to an employee, and that laptop has different software, different client-based applications, players, everything that could be potentially done with the laptop. So it's part of the corporate security that needs to be tested as well. Wireless network, well, it kind of self-explanatory. It's testing wireless networks of the corporation. It involves different techniques such as finding security holes in wireless protocols, access points, admin credentials. Usually it will require penetration testers to be around close to the facilities that provides the Wi-Fi testing, and it uncovers many weaknesses. Maybe you heard we do this also show and tell for kids with Hack Student with our sessions, when we show how Wi-Fi can be hacked, and we simply display how we can host Starbucks Wi-Fi that people can connect to, and potentially the information can be stolen for that. Social engineering is also a very big topic. Phishing, right? It generally it has two types: social engineering. Let's say remote one and the physical one. So remote one is, like I said, phishing, and similar techniques to that people can be manipulated through some sort of electronical access or way. And physical is when we trying to manipulate people in person, impersonation maybe of somebody. For example, I come into a corporate office and I pretend that I am, I don't know, some service employee, right? And I go and maybe I will be even let in. that I forgot my pass and I would be able to get into my server, not my corporation server room. That would be interesting. So any different persuasion techniques that are used and that we can also learn about and see how they work and make sure that we able to implement the defenses in that. And some of the defenses from social engineering are things like awareness training, continuous awareness training, but also implementation certain policies in organization that could restrict certain activities based on predefined policy. And last but not least is physical, of course, physical access. Can I walk through that door? Can I get to the server room, right? Is that lock secure? Can I manipulate with the lock and so on? So I'm not sure if we're gonna get to a physical layer in these sessions, but let's see, maybe when we go in some in-person sessions, maybe, who knows, we'll get to that area as well. Nevertheless, it's good to know that there is also a physical layer of that. Another slice that is important to understand about penetration testing is Blackbox, Whitebox, and Graybox. Now, these terms are not the same terms when we talk about black hat hacker, white hat hacker, and gray hat hacker, right? So it's not the same, needs to be clear. When black hat hacker, it means it's a criminal, he or she is a criminal, and white hat is an ethical hacker, and a gray, it's somewhere in between, shady people. In this case, the black box, it means a zero knowledge. So no information is given for the penetration test and for the black box approach. And this is how attackers would potentially start with the corporations. If you think about that, black box eventually becomes gray box and maybe even white box for the attackers, because the more reconnaissance they do, the more information they collect about the systems, the more they know about it. So they don't just go blindly and try to attack the system. That wouldn't be very smart. So in many cases, they get to the gray box area by collecting the reconnaissance. And from there, they learn more and more. And maybe they would not get to the white box, or sometimes called clear box, when the tester has full knowledge of the software, of the system, of the application, and has access, right? But they might get pretty close to that. So from penetration test perspective, black box is it takes the longest time. It's not the most efficient way to do penetration test. It's usually called also trial and error approach. Nevertheless, there is a term and it can be used in some cases. For example, a corporation would want to find out how easy it is to find information to attack them. Now, if there is a need for more deep analysis, maybe more focused in a way, thorough test, then there will be a specific penetration test in a white box approach. This is when they have, like I said, more information. They even have access to code, perhaps, and it also requires more sophisticated tools, for example, code analysis tools and debuggers to analyze the code and analyze the issues within it. There are some drawbacks with that, of course, with every type there are some, but here it's maybe sometimes it's more difficult to focus where exactly in a system you should start with. Nevertheless, there's always a plan for penetration test. There's also an agreement, and usually the scope is defined where you focus on, and you can really do a thorough test on whatever system you are doing the test. And Graybox, of course, from the name, it's kind of a combination of both. Usually it has some access to the software, maybe it has a little knowledge of the software, maybe some high-level architecture overview, but not everything, so that it can be, so maybe more difficult security holes can be discovered during this type of test. You don't know everything, but you have enough information and you can navigate and find the flaws or weaknesses around that, while in a white box, you will be very much focused on something specific. So that's the differences. Now, who are doing those testing? Who is the team? And usually we hear red team, blue team, and purple team. Most likely it's red team versus blue team, but we also have a term of the purple team, which by the color says it's combination of both again. So red team, their primary goal is an objective is to mimic or emulate the mindset of an attacker, trying to break in through all kind of ways and exploit all possible weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And if you think about red team, it's not very much limited to some sort of a testing, for example, like network or a web application. It's usually a combined together with a real scenario of attack, right? So somebody tries to break in. So how would you gain some information? Would you be able to break in into the server room, or would you be able to gain access to the network, to some crown jewels, or etc.? And it can involve multiple steps, multiple people as well, trying to break in. Now, the blue team are more like defenders. They actually are defenders. They're usually IT security professionals. And their primary goal is an objective is to defend any attacks from the red team. It is important, though, that anybody participating in the blue team, that they must possess a mindset of constant proactiveness and vigilance to defend the corporation against any and all attacks. So it's consistent defenders. You must be proactive. So reactive only works when they are live attacks. So when red team attacks, or when real-time scenario, when attacker actually tries to gain access, blue team steps in and tries to close all the ports, right? Separate the systems and perform all the activities that can actually help a corporation to minimize the damage. Now, red team and blue team can be viewed as the two sides of, I don't know, like yin and yang, you can call them, right? But they should work together. They should work together and exchange their findings to make the systems stronger in security. However, that it's not always happening this way, because usually in corporation, within the company, you don't have your own red team, unless maybe if you're a giant. Usually you hire red team. Sorry. And blue team don't always talk to the red team to find out all the vulnerabilities that they need to defend. Therefore, we have a purple team. Purple. So, and purple team adapts both techniques from the red and the blue team, combines them and implements them in the corporation. And they should be as a separate entity to make sure that there are no bias is involved on that side. Okay, so everyone should learn to hack. How would you do that? Of course, learning technology. You will hear a lot of reference in our sessions about some technology. It's a good hint for you, actually. If you're not familiar with something, you can go and research. And it's a good thing that we will have a forum as well, a live forum and after session forum, where we can communicate and discuss, and maybe even experts who are joining us as a guests for our sessions can direct you to proper material to learn more. I'm always going to be online as well during the sessions and after, and we'll also navigate research and research exploits. Every session that we're going to have a small tiny demo where we want to show you the tips and tricks to learn safely within the tools that maybe we will recommend. We will explain how they work. And so that you can use that knowledge, you can try yourself, you can try it together with us, you can use that knowledge to implement the defensive mechanisms in your systems. Just remember, we shouldn't be really playing with live systems or productive systems. So always use sandbox or dedicated test systems, and we will go through that. So it's exciting. Okay, I would like to close today's session. You can always come back. We might be referencing back to the session if we're talking about some specific technique, and it's like, yeah, there are other ones, and maybe you can learn about other techniques as well. But general for cyber exchange sessions, those episodes, watch us live, watch us every month, last Friday of the month. You can book it in your calendars, 4 p.m. Toronto time, and join our live discussions, join our forum as well, offline. You know how to find me. I'm on different platforms. I'm on Cyber Exchange as well. So you can always ask, you can bring your ideas, you can bring your questions. Please, we want to hear from you. What do you want to hear in these episodes? What do you want to learn about? And also bring feedback. What do you think we should maybe bring to these sessions as well? We have a lot of ideas, but we always welcome new ideas. And of course, meet like-minded people, like in our cybersecurity network, and experts who know the topic that you are interested in. Learn the practical tips. Like I said, we'll do a little demos, how to specific tips and techniques on ethical hacking. And also, last but not least, why we do this is for you to learn and apply this knowledge in your organization, in your work, so that we can all collectively build more secure systems across different tech platforms and solutions. And with that, I'm going to close this first episode. Thank you so much for joining me today, and see you next month. Bye.